You know that feeling, right? A big project goes completely off the rails, and what's the first thing that happens? Everyone starts looking for a scapegoat. It's almost a reflex. But what if? What if that's the totally wrong question to be asking? Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful idea. What happens when we stop blaming people and start looking at the systems they're stuck inside? Let's get into why the design of the system, not the person, is the real key to stopping failures before they even start.
Wow, this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's basically saying that every single time we point a finger, we're completely missing the bigger picture. The real story isn't about one person's slip-up. No, it's about a failure in the design of the whole system. A design that pretty much guaranteed someone was going to make that mistake eventually.
Okay, so let's dive into our first section, the firefight. And we're starting with a scene that I'm pretty sure we all know a little too well. This is what it looks like when we're just stuck reacting, just dealing with the symptoms instead of the real cause.
So picture this, right? All hell breaks loose. The critical system just crashed. That huge deadline, totally missed. The pressure is on, it is intense. And in that moment, what's the easiest, most, emotionally satisfying thing to do? Find who's responsible. It gives you a simple story, a villain, a sense of closure. But let's be honest, does it actually solve anything?
And this brings us to a really key contrast between two very different roles. You've got the firefighter, and you've got the designer. Think about it. The firefighter is the hero who swoops in, cape flying, to save the day. Their work is super visible, it's dramatic, and boy, do they get celebrated for it. But the designer? They're working quietly, behind the scenes, building systems where those fires never even have a chance to start. Their success is totally invisible. It's defined by all the disasters that never happen.
And this really gets to the core of it. Let's be real. Blame is cheap. It's the easy way out. It doesn't take any deep thinking or real investment. But architecture, the thoughtful design of how we work, that's what creates real lasting value. It's an investment that pays off over and over again by preventing who knows how many future failures.
All right, section 2, below the surface. So if we want to become those designers, we've got to stop just fighting fires all the time. We need to start looking for where the smoke is actually coming from. It's time to go find the real problem.
And this question, this is the pivot. This is the one that changes everything. It shifts us from asking who did it to asking why did it happen? Why was this person even in a position where they could fail? What kind of pressure were they dealing with? What crucial piece of information were they missing?
So to help us find that why, there's this fantastic tool called the iceberg model. It basically shows reality in 4 different layers. Now, most of us in most organizations, we live at the very tip of the iceberg, just reacting to events as they pop up. But the real power, the ability to actually change things, that lies deep, deep beneath the surface. So let's break down each of these layers.
First up, at the very top, you have events. This is the visible stuff, right? The stuff that gets all the attention. The system crash, the missed deadline. It's what just happened. And if we stop here, we're doing nothing more than slapping a Band-Aid on a much bigger problem.
Okay, let's go a little deeper, just below the waterline. Here we find patterns. This is when you start to notice things like, it's always the same department that misses its deadlines. Or, why does this exact same type of bug keep showing up? We can see that it's happening over and over, but we still have no clue why.
Deeper still, we get to the structures, and this is where we finally get to ask the right question. What is making this pattern happen? Now we're looking at the actual mechanics of the organization, the workflows, the official policies, the communication channels, what we actually reward. These are the structures that are forcing those patterns to be consistent. And finally, we hit the foundation, the very bottom of the iceberg. These are the mental models. We're talking about our deepest, often completely unexamined beliefs about the world. Things like, do we secretly believe that people are lazy and need to be watched all the time? Do we think that making a mistake is a sign of a bad person? These core assumptions are what dictate the kinds of structures we end up building in the first place. Okay, on to section 3, the invisible architecture. So what this whole iceberg model shows us is something pretty profound about failure. It's almost never a sudden, shocking event. It's usually a slow burn, a process that's been baked right into the system's invisible design for a long, long time. And this is where we need to make a really critical distinction. On one hand, you have active failures. These are the obvious mistakes, right? The wrong button pushed, the checklist item that got skipped. We fixate on these because they're easy to see. But the real culprits?
Those are the latent failures, the stuff hiding in the background, the bad design, the impossible workload, the incentives that pull people in opposite directions. These are basically just accidents waiting to happen, just waiting for the right trigger.
Which brings us to our fourth section. What happens after mistakes? Look, if these latent failures are pretty much always there, then the true test of any group or organization isn't whether mistakes happen, because they will. The real test is what happens after. This is the moment of truth, where your real culture shows its face.
Yeah, you can forget all those inspirational posters on the conference room wall. Your culture is not what you say you value. It's what you actually consistently do. How does your team react when someone brings bad news? What happens when a big experiment totally flops? That pattern of response, that is your real culture. Full stop. So how do we actually build a better culture? Well, there's this concept called a just culture, and it offers a really powerful, really disciplined alternative to just blaming people. And let's be clear, this is not about letting everyone off the hook. It's about having a smart, fair way to respond to different kinds of behavior so that the main goal is always to learn and get better. And this framework gives us a super clear guide. So let's say it was a simple human error, just an unintentional slip. The right response? You console the person, and this is the most important part, you improve the system so it's harder to make that mistake again. Now, what about at-risk behavior? This is when someone takes a shortcut, but they don't really see how dangerous it is. The answer there is coaching and then redesigning the incentives. And only, and I mean only, for reckless behavior where someone consciously ignored a huge known risk is discipline the right move. See? The goal is always learning, not punishment.
Okay, our final section, leading as an architect. To really embrace all of this, it requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we even think about leadership. It's about moving from being a manager of people to becoming a designer of systems.
And this contrast really illustrates it perfectly. You have the operator who's working in the system. They're on the front lines, fighting fires, just trying to keep the machine running. But the architect? They step back. They work on the system. They're asking, is this machine even designed the right way? Ultimately, the architect's goal is to make all that heroic firefighting totally unnecessary.
So how do you start thinking like an architect? It all starts by asking way better questions. Forget the official policies for a second. Look at who actually gets promoted, who gets praised. You need to ask yourself, what behavior is our system quietly rewarding no matter what the mission statement on the wall says?
Here's another one, and this one takes some guts to ask. What failure are we right now quietly incubating? Because every system is. Every system is slowly setting the stage for its next failure. A real architect has the courage to go looking for those hidden problems before they blow up into a full-blown crisis.
And finally, this might be the most powerful question of all. This one forces us to really challenge those deep, foundational mental models we talked about. You have to ask, what's something we hold as an absolute, unquestionable truth today that in 5 years we might look back on and be completely embarrassed by?
Because in the end, it really all boils down to this one choice. It's simple, but it's definitely not easy. We can keep running on that exhausting hamster wheel of reacting and blaming, or we can do the harder but much more compassionate work of designing systems where being successful is the easy, default path and where failure is the rare, surprising exception. That choice is up to us.